Whoa, that was a statement. The Chargers didn't just win their first preseason game, they sent a message. And unfortunately for Detroit, the Lions were the recipients of a full-on football lesson. But before we dive into what just happened on the field, make sure you're subscribed to the channel for all the latest NFL breakdowns, preseason highlights, and smart takes that go beyond the scoreboard. Hit that like button, smash the bell icon, and never miss a moment of the action. All right, let's get into it. This wasn't just a meaningless August game. It was a glimpse into what Jim Harbaugh is building on the West Coast, and it looks real, fast, disciplined, hungry. Now, yes, Detroit rested many of its key players, while LA put some rookies, and even a few starters, out there. But that doesn't erase what we saw. Execution, effort, and flashes of potential from names most fans haven't even memorized yet. There's one player I want to focus on. Someone who didn't steal headlines, but may quietly be shaping his future. Trey Lance. Remember him? Drafted 3rd overall in 2021 by the 49ers, and now? He's become something of an afterthought. But don't sleep on the possibilities here. With the right environment, the right coach, and maybe the right trade, this forgotten man might just become a comeback story. He's just 25 years old. Let that sink in. Trey Lance, a player who's already been written off by half the league, is younger than some quarterbacks who just entered the draft. Remember the hype? Drafted 3rd overall in 2021. A rocket arm, mobility, raw potential. But fate had other plans. A brutal ankle injury derailed his second season in San Francisco, and before he could blink, Brock Purdy took over the spotlight and never looked back. So Lance quietly landed in Dallas, got lost in the shuffle, and now he's resurfaced in LA, wearing a Chargers uniform with something to prove, and maybe, finally, a system that fits. And if you caught the game against the Lions, you saw it. Lance went 13 for 20, tossed for 120 yards, and added 2 touchdowns to his stat line. But stats don't tell the whole story. What stood out wasn't just the numbers, it was how he looked. Confident, in control, poised under pressure, and credit where it's due, Jim Harbaugh didn't treat him like a fragile asset. Most coaches would have pulled a young quarterback at halftime after a strong start to protect his confidence. But Harbaugh wanted more. He kept him in, challenged him, gave him reps after the break. Lance responded. One throw in particular turned heads. A deep ball, about 30 yards in the air, placed perfectly into the hands of Kindred Lambert-Smith, splitting defenders with precision. It wasn't just a show of arm strength. It was touch. It was vision. It was a glimpse of why he was a top 3 pick in the first place. And we're just getting started. That throw, the one everyone's talking about, wasn't just a deep ball. It was a moment of control. Trey Lance dropped it right over the corner, threading it in before the safety had a chance to recover. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. It was intentional. Sure, in a regular season game, the defense reacts faster. The windows are tighter. But when a quarterback shows touch, not just arm strength, you pay attention. And Lance showed that. Oddly enough, though, what really stood out might have been a short, almost forgettable throw. A 4-yard touchdown to Will Dissly. Nothing flashy. No 60-yard bomb. Just a perfectly weighted pass, lofted just enough to clear the defender's outstretched arms, and land gently in the only spot Dissly could make the catch. That kind of pass? That's the difference between potential and progress. And here's what's smart. Harbaugh didn't throw Lance out there with a bunch of practice squad guys. He surrounded him with talent. Guys like Omar, Hampton, even some top picks got real reps. It wasn't a throwaway game. It was a test. Now, you might be wondering, why does any of this matter? The Chargers already have Justin Herbert, right? True. And when Herbert's healthy, he's elite, no doubt. Arm strength, field awareness, leadership. The guy checks every box. But here's the truth. Herbert's been banged up. Not necessarily every season, but often enough. Ankles, ribs. One small tweak, and suddenly your franchise QB is on the sideline or playing through pain. That's where the backup matters. Not just to keep the offense afloat, but to keep the season alive. And after what we saw against Detroit, Trey Lance might not just be a placeholder, he could be a plan. Let's be real. Most teams have a backup quarterback. But how many have one that can actually win you a game? The Chargers already have a veteran in the room, reliable, serviceable. A guy who knows the playbook and can hold down the huddle if needed. But he's what people in the league quietly call a JAG, just another guy. Steady? Yes. Game-changing? Not really. That's why Trey Lance is so interesting. He brings something different. Not just the tools, but the fit. His arm strength mirrors Herbert's. His mobility is enough to keep plays alive. Most importantly, the offense doesn't have to transform the moment he steps in. No drastic playbook overhaul. No watered-down packages. Just plug him in and go. That's valuable. And here's the part no one's saying out loud. Lance might not just be a short-term insurance policy. He might be a trade asset. Think about it. If he keeps flashing potential through the preseason, not just big throws, but smart decisions, teams will start to notice. Teams in quarterback limbo. Teams with injured starters. Teams thinking long-term. If the Chargers decide he's not in their future plans, and Herbert stays healthy, they may be holding a valuable card come mid-season. A young quarterback with first-round pedigree, showing poise and growth, that could fetch a second or third-round pick in the right situation, and that's no small return for a backup. The Lions once hoped to do something similar with Hendon Hooker, polish him up, get some tape out, and see if another franchise bites. The Chargers might be sitting on that same opportunity with Lance. And if nothing else, he raises the floor in that quarterback room. Now, while we're on the topic of standouts, let's shift to a guy who made one of the most quietly brilliant plays of the game, Kindred Lambert-Smith. Let's talk about Kindred Lambert-Smith. And no, not because of the deep ball. We already know he's got burner speed. 4.3 on the stopwatch. That's old news. What really stood out was something quieter, something smarter, his route running. See, speed is easy to notice. You run fast, you separate, you get highlights. But what Lambert-Smith did on one particular play showed maturity, not just raw talent. It was a slant. Simple enough on paper. But the way he set it up, textbook. He didn't just run the route, he sold it. Quick release, sudden foot plant. And just like that, he created enough separation to make the corner look like he was chasing shadows. And yeah, the corner, let's be honest, wasn't exactly a household name. But that's not the point. The point is how decisively Lambert-Smith executed. That 15-yard slant didn't just move the chains. It broke the coverage. Once the ball hit his hands, he turned upfield and hit another gear. You could see it immediately. This wasn't just speed. It was controlled acceleration. The kind that flips a routine catch into 6 points before defenders even process what happened. Watch it again in slow motion, and you'll see it. A subtle shoulder dip, a shift in leverage, and then boom, he's out of frame. This is what separates athletes from receivers. He's not just fast, he's crafty. And that's the kind of weapon that doesn't need 10 targets to change a game. There was a moment on that play, blink, and you'd miss it. But it was everything. The route concept was smart. One receiver dragged the safety inside, opening the field for a one-on-one outside. And there was Lambert-Smith, lined up across from a corner, who didn't know what was coming. One jab step, one sudden break, and the corner was left searching for balance, and maybe for his dignity. Yeah, the speed is deadly. We've talked about that. But what made this route devastating wasn't just speed. It was timing. It was awareness. It was a young receiver manipulating a defender like a veteran. What stands out most isn't even the explosive plays. It's how consistently Lambert-Smith is creating space, no matter the situation. It's how he's winning reps that aren't designed for flash, but for reliability. This isn't just preseason hype. This is a fifth-round pick jumping the depth chart. Already, he's earning more reps than players drafted higher, including a second-rounder still trying to find his rhythm. And that's okay. Development isn't linear. But when you've got a late-rounder showing this much polish this early, you take notice. If this continues, if Lambert-Smith keeps building chemistry, keeps refining those routes, and if Trey Harris finds his footing behind him, suddenly, you're not just watching a rebuilt wide receiver room. You're watching a dangerous rotation forming behind a quarterback like Herbert. And if that clicks, this offense won't just be efficient. It'll be electric.